As soon as I launched my banking app, my pulse froze. The 12 grand has vanished. I was just hours ago giggling with family at my parents' 30th anniversary celebration at the Palmer House in downtown Chicago, where sparkling chandeliers illuminated the room as we clinked glasses. Everything seemed to be falling apart as we stood in our hotel room. As I gazed at the computer, my palms quivered in response to the numbers that seemed to taunt me. Why did this occur? Who would harm me in this way? Hi, my name is Emily Harper, and I'm a 32-year-old financial analyst who had a happy life, a secure career, and a family I believed I could trust. As we prepared to return to our Lakeview apartment, my fiancé, James Carter, a brilliant lawyer with a generous soul, was putting together our belongings. Susan and Robert Harper. My parents had the most beautiful anniversary celebration. There making jokes was my little brother Liam. Olivia Bennett, my older sister, and her husband Ethan danced carefree as if nothing were wrong with the world. On the other hand, I had the impression that something was wrong. The fleeting looks of Olivia, the artificial grins of Ethan, and the too warm embraces of my mother were cast in my mind like specters. I yelled out, "James!" my voice quivering like a leaf in a tempest. After seeing my phone, he hurried over, his black eyes narrowing in alarm, and he threw his bag down. "Emily, what is it? Looks like you've had an eerie encounter." "My account," I said, gesturing toward the screen. "It's practically empty. 15 grand was in my possession yesterday. Only 3,000 remain now, as if a vice were clamping down on my ribs." My chest constricted. With lightning speed, James picked up the phone and began perusing the purchase history. When I saw his jaw tighten, I knew something was wrong. 5,000 to Olivia Bennett, he read quietly. 3,000 to Ethan Bennett. Susan Harper will receive 3,000. During our time at the party last night, he raised a piercing glance to the sky. "Listen, Emily, this isn't a bug. Your account was compromised." As my legs gave way, I collapsed into the bed. What about my loved ones? Young people. Did these people, the ones I had poured my heart and soul into loving, supporting, and rejoicing with, do this? Memories of the night ran through my head. I foolishly thought my phone would be secure with my family during the party, so I set it on the table. I had celebrated my parents' love with a toast, danced with James, and laughed with Liam. Was it possible that someone snatched my phone while I was preoccupied? I felt as if I had eaten poison whenever the idea occurred to me. "The bank must be contacted immediately," James stated with a strong yet sympathetic tone. "This is serious, Emily," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder to steady me. The word fraud landed like a blow. Contrick. The tone was icy and sinister. Is it possible that I truly view my family in that light? My phone rang in James's palm before I could respond. It was Susan, my mother. Time seemed to be aligning just so. I drew back my index finger, twitching over the response button. "Grab it," James beckoned, "but don't freak out. What does she have to say?" With a knot in my throat swallowed, I nodded and pushed the button. "Mom, who?" My worry was evident in the way my voice broke. "My darling Emily." It seemed like Susan was phoning to discuss the weather because her voice was so cheerful. "Last night, I simply wanted to express my gratitude to you. It was the most wonderful party, wasn't it? We counted a great fortune to have you two as our children." My knuckles whitened as I clenched the phone even more. "Hey, Mom, I have a question for you." I did my best to seem calm, but my heart was racing. Some funds have disappeared from my bank account. 11 grand was wired yesterday night. Are you familiar with that in any way? Moment of silence, a creepy, crawly silence that seemed to go on forever. After then, a little chuckle as if I had cracked a joke. Oh my, that town. It's so little we merely borrowed a bit because Olivia said your account had more money than we anticipated. This is for the children's party, you know. We assumed you wouldn't object because you're doing so well, Emily. It shivered through me. Taken out, taken out. A knife-like reverberation of the word sliced through my mind. My voice quivered with anger as I screamed, "Mom, that's your money. No, you can't just accept it. How on earth did you manage to access my account?" This time the chuckle is harsher. "Emily, you need to tone it down a bit. Your birth date has always served as your password. Hasn't it, Olivia noticed your phone sitting nearby? We're related, my dear. Loved ones support one another. So you have that beautiful job and are single. A couple of $100. Why the big deal? Some money, $12,000. Tears stinging my eyes, my eyesight hazy. My throat felt like it was shutting, and I wanted to yell for answers, but I couldn't. James placed the phone on speaker and picked it up. The woman. "Hey, Harper, this is James Carter, Emily's boyfriend," he remarked with a cool but firm tone. "You have committed an illegal act. It is against the law to get unauthorized access to her account." As icy as the Chicago blizzard, Susan's voice changed. The attorney, "Oh no, leave this alone, James," after saying, "This is a family matter." She ended the call, creating a void that was more deafening than any yell. My thoughts were racing as I gazed at the floor. Loving ones. Now the word had an ash-like bitterness to it. Had all that I had done to assist them over the years, from purchasing a new TV for my parents, to paying for Olivia's children's school fees, to giving money to Liam for college, been a lie, was all I was to them. A bank account they could empty at will. As I knelt alongside him, James's warm palm brushed across my icy fingertips. "Look at me, Emily. We're going to fix this." His steady eyes grounded me. "We must move swiftly, though. We must visit your parents' residence once you contact the bank to freeze your account. You should be told the truth directly." My heart felt like it was going to burst, but I nodded nevertheless. "Okay," I whispered. "Sure, let's do it." We bundled up and made our way to the door as the rain distorted the lights of the Chicago cityscape. I could feel the city's vitality and pulsation, but a tempest was building within me. I was on the verge of confronting my deceived family. Tell me what I may discover if I did. Would I ever get them back, or had I already lost them? I was so preoccupied with my racing thoughts that I hardly heard the road hum on the way to Oak Park. His touch was a lifeline, and James grabbed for my hand. "In this journey, you will not face challenges alone," he reassured. I felt the weight of what was ahead of me pressing down on me as we drew into my parents' driveway. Even if his words were a glimmer of warmth in the cold, it was going to hurt to face the truth, but it was waiting. On our way to my parents' house in Oak Park, James and I were buffeted by the continuous rain that pounded on the windshield. With every mile, my gut clenched like a twisted rope. Even members of my own family have taken $12,000 from my bank account. I felt a new pain every time I thought of my mother Susan, my sister Olivia, or her husband Ethan. Just how were they able to pull this off? How could they possibly justify their actions? As the storm engulfed us, the Chicago cityscape receded behind us, but the true tempest was brewing within me. James's calm and warm hand was resting on mine. He spoke over the static in my head and added, "Emily, you're not in this alone. Answers are necessary, though. Never give up, all right." Despite the fact that my heart felt like it was breaking, I nodded, strong. To be honest, I had lost any sense of what it meant. Throughout my whole life, I had always played the role of the good daughter, the one who willingly chipped in to pay my parents' bills, paid for our family dinners, and even helped out Olivia's kids. Being caught in a web that I hadn't even seen made me feel like a complete idiot. The familiar red brick home beckoned us as we approached its porch light, casting a deceiving radiance. The house was filled with laughter as my mother's gentle hum, Ethan's deep chuckle, and Olivia's shrill giggles all escaped. My flesh tingled at the thought of it. As my world crumbled around me, they laughed. The growing wave of wrath caused me to tighten my fists. "Let's go," I said, my voice more forceful than I had anticipated. Even before I could rap on the door, it swung open. Standing there with a newspaper tucked under his arm was my father, Robert. His gray hair was untidy. "What about Emily?" The sight of my face caused his grin to waver. He had assumed I was returning to Lakeview. "You're sick, aren't you?" Olivia, Ethan, and Susan were gathered around the coffee table, wine glasses in hand, when I squeezed past him into the living room. As if a movie had been halted, their expressions become silent and lifeless. Why, my voice was shaking, but it was loud as I asked, "You accessed my account for what reason? For what reason did you take $12,000 from me?" Olivia smirked as she crossed her arms and leaned back. "No need to be so dramatic, Emily. Was your birth date your password? It was a prank. Last night when you were dancing, I snatched your phone." "No big deal." Her carefree tone was incredibly condescending, and her words oozed with haughtiness. "What the hey?" My hands were trembling as I yelled. "Olivia, that is my money. Taking it is not an option." Ethan drew nearer, his pupils constricted. "Emily, please, we really needed it. Life is tight, you know. We have to pay for the party, the kids' school tuition, and our mortgage. You're unmarried and have that high-paying job. Just why do you require so much money?" Someone had hit me in the stomach. My jaw clenched, and I felt like I was about to burst into tears. Is it necessary I own it? I fought for it, I rescued it, and I plotted for it. It is not up to you to determine my needs. With a voice that was sweet and syrupy, Susan rose up, hands gently smoothing her clothes. "Emily, my darling, we're life. Over the years, you have been an invaluable resource for our family. What I'm doing is simply sharing, nothing more." With his presence acting as a barrier, James advanced. "The woman. This isn't sharing Harper. In other words, it's theft. You're well aware that gaining unauthorized access to Emily's account is a serious offense." Susan's expression turned icy as she lost her grin. "James, you have no right to lecture me. Harper and I are keeping this private." I was gasping for air. With each justification, the room seemed to be closing in on me, and their words encircled me like a net. Just how could you? My voice quivered as I murmured, "You guys, I trusted you," Olivia said while rolling her eyes. "Emily, please don't cause a fuss. In just 1 month, you will recoup that investment. More so, we required it." In my chest, a sudden jolt occurred. I lowered my voice and looked across at James. "Will you kindly review my account one more?" With a nod, he reached for his laptop, and I knew he needed to know everything. His face turned black as he continued to dig. "This is even worse than we anticipated, Emily," he remarked in a solemn voice. "Last month, Olivia obtained a loan of $20,000 using your identity. All the documentation has your name and social security number on it." It seemed as if the room had spiraled about. "Do you need a loan?" Who am I grasping the arm of a chair? I staggered backwards. I screamed out, "Olivia, you stole my identity. You have no right to treat me this way." Unconcerned, she shrugged. "Our bills were overdue. Why not? You weren't even making a dent in your credit." "Emily, you're doing great. Quit being so dramatic." "An exaggeration." She referred to the chaos in my life as overreacting. Throwbacks erupted the times Olivia had requested my identification just for a form, which I had rationalized as a sign of our sisterly confidence. It was all an elaborate ruse to drain me of my money. "This isn't just theft," I said, my voice suddenly solid with anger. "Someone has betrayed you." With her hand out for me, Susan drew nearer. I drew back. "Emily," she whispered, "the strain on your father's heart is too much. Notifying the bank about this will affect him." Her remarks pierced through my remorse and fury, urging me to consider the family. Did I not adore them? The intended sensation of love was not to be this intense like a trap closing. James softly grabbed hold of my arm. "We're leaving," he declared with conviction. "Emily, you are under no obligation to them." Olivia's scathing and sarcastic voice trailed behind us as we departed. "Emily, you're really self-centered. Keep fighting the good fight," I sobbed into the vehicle seat once more. Tears rolling down my cheeks. "James, they took advantage of me, my own family." He grasped my hand and ran his thumb over my knuckles. "It was them. Keep in mind that you have company. Let's stand united and oppose this." I paid a visit to my brother Liam at his Wicker Park apartment the next day. A haven, the warm room was a hodgepodge of books and coffee cups. After I spilled the beans to Liam, his expression dropped. "I knew Olivia and Ethan were plotting," he said, his voice thick with confession. "Emily, borrowing from you was mentioned during the gathering. Fear prevented me from intervening when I should have. Worried it would rip us to shreds." The anguish in his eyes made my heart hurt even more. I reached out and touched Liam's arm, telling him, "You're not them. Now is the time to provide me a hand, will you?" His mouth clenched as he nodded. "My support is with you, sister. I promise," she said. "A friend of James's, the lawyer Rachel Nguyen, focuses on financial crimes. James set up a meeting with her. Although her loop office was cold and clinical, all glass and steel, her voice was welcoming. As she perused my bank statements, she called it identity theft and financial abuse. You have a solid argument. However, proof of their purpose, such as messages or emails, is required. I combed over my records for hours. The figures revealed a narrative that I had chosen to overlook. For a long time, my family had $25,000 loaned to them under pressure from people who used guilt trips and flattery. "Emily, you're so fortunate," they'd exclaim. "Assist your struggling family." That seemed more like exploitation than assistance. With each new piece of information I found, my determination became stronger. The icy, merciless wind of Chicago swept across the streets as I departed from Rachel's workplace. "Emily, you're destroying our lives." Olivia texted me and my phone buzzed. "If I'm out of work, my family will be homeless. Are you content right now?" Curiously, I kept my finger on the respond button while I gazed at the text. After remembering Rachel's comments, "You're the victim, Emily," the guilt that had been plaguing me began to subside. They are not the ones. I erased the message and locked eyes with James, who maintained his unwavering gaze. "Well, what comes next?" "My voice is now stronger," I inquired. In a subtle way, he grinned. "We support your argument. As we demonstrated to them, you're done being their ATM. the city teemed with energy and potential. An ounce of optimism finally settled into my heart. I was prepared to escape from this intricate web of treachery. The towering ceilings of the Cook County Courthouse magnified every murmur, while the aroma of stale coffee and polished wood filled the air. Even though my knuckles hurt from clutching James's hand, my heart was pounding like a drum. Emily Harper here fighting for justice today, against Olivia, Ethan, and Susan, my family. I was determined to free myself from the web of treachery that had been spun around me by those who had stolen $12,000 and exploited my name to get a $20,000 loan. Every decision that brought me to this point became apparent as the judge's gavel sounded. Our lawyer, Rachel Nguyen, presented the facts while standing upright and maintaining a calm voice. Documents like bank statements, texts, and emails are slowly revealing my family's deceit. Angry, pale-skinned Olivia caught my sight as I stole a quick glimpse in her direction. Seated next to her, Ethan's customary grin was vanished, replaced with an anxious twitch. As she twisted a tissue in her hands, my mom, Susan, glanced at the floor. Even when I tried to feel sorry for them all, I got was an empty hurt. I had liked these individuals, but now they were using me for their own gain. To the stand, Rachel summoned Liam. Despite his slouched posture, my brother's speech came over well. Olivia boasted about stealing Emily's money. He added, his voice filled with contempt. She said it was simple, on the grounds that Emily had complete faith in her. Courtroom gasps were audible as they planned it. Weeks in advance of the anniversary celebration, the court put an end to Olivia's lawyer's objections. A wave of appreciation washed over me as I locked eyes with Liam. Standing at my side, he was jeopardizing our family's acceptance and his position among them. Then I had my chance. With my determination unwavering and my legs quivering, I stepped up to the stand. "They took more than money," I said, maintaining a firm voice, despite the burning in my eyes. My faith, safety, and feeling of family were all snatched away by them. Over the years, I gave them my love, my support, and thousands of money. "Emily, you're betraying us. They rewarded me with theft," Olivia said from her seat. "It's like we're related." Her remarks rang in my ears even as the judge pounded his gavel. In the family, no, this wasn't related. There was a mountain of evidence. Olivia and Ethan were found guilty of fraud and identity theft by the judge in a flash. A 4-year probationary period, a reparation order of $12,000, and a $7,000 award for mental distress. Despite the dismissal of criminal charges, Susan was subject to a civil action alleging conspiracy. Their house was on the brink of foreclosure, their accounts were locked, and Ethan lost his job. I felt liberated as the gavel sounded. Absolutely free, without malice or retaliation. I was walking out as the web was fracturing. The price of independence was high, though. Ethan sent me a nasty email that night, and my phone rang. "Estimed Emily, you are going to hate this. You've completely upended our lives," I said before deleting the message and keeping my cool. Tears streaming down Susan's cheeks, she arrived at my flat. "Emily, how on earth could you? You have broken your father's heart. Shall we go out into the street?" The sound of her speech cut deep, inflicting shame onto me. "I stand firm," I said with an icy tone. "This is not my doing, Mom. It's yours." I shut the door, permanently severing ties with her deception as she departed, her tears dissipating into the Chicago rain. James brought me to Lake Michigan the next night. In sharp contrast to the tempest raging within me, The lake was painted in a variety of pink and gold hues by the setting sun. We strolled out to a little pier and saw a table set with candles and roses. I was taken aback. "James, could you tell me what I'm looking at?" My voice was kind as I inquired. With a kind grin and kind eyes, he bowed down before me, clutching a velvet box. "Emily Harper, you're the strongest person I know." He continued, his voice heavy with passion. "You freed yourself from their deceit by standing firm. With you, I want to establish a genuine family based on mutual respect and affection. Will we tie the knot?" I wept, but not because I was sad, but because I was hopeful. "Yes, James," I said, my voice weak. He said, "Yes, I will marry you." As the waves softly lapped below, he delicately placed the ring, a modest diamond, shining like a promise, onto my finger. We hugged each other close, our love growing stronger. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally felt a weightlessness like a bird soaring over the city skyline. A few days after that, in an unassuming envelope came a letter. Unknown to me, Sarah Miller had read my piece, Family Fraud, A Survivor's Fight, which had been published anonymously in the Chicago Tribune. "Dear Emily," Sarah wrote, "your boldness gave me strength. For a long time, my brother made purchases using my credit card, and I did nothing. Yet as your narrative shown, I am deserving of better." The letter was gripped by me as my heart swelled with gratitude. There were others. I had no idea the impact my struggle would have on people I'd never met. Despite the howling wind outside my window in Chicago, I experienced a level of warmth that I hadn't felt in a long time inside. James sat down with me, and we plotted our future together, our hands intertwined. With a lively tone, Liam made his call. "I am relocating to Chicago, my sister." Tears welled up in my eyes once more as I smiled, but I knew I had to remain with my actual family. Trapped in a web of treachery, I managed to free myself. I was now creating a new life with James, Liam, and even total strangers like Sarah, one based on honesty, love, and the strength to refuse. I knew this wasn't the last chapter as I gazed at the metropolis, its lights shimmering like celestial bodies. A new chapter has begun. A second chance at family, a chance to guard my heart, a chance to live fearlessly. I was prepared to shine now that the storm had passed. As I peered out of my apartment window at nightfall, I could make out the mosaic of lights that made up the Chicago skyline. Sitting at my desk, I stared at a folder containing bank data as my cup of coffee became cold. The trial, the sentencing of Olivia and Ethan, and the fact that my mother's tears did not persuade me all occurred weeks ago. Like a crushed bruise, the weight of their treachery remained. But then I felt a stirring within, a drive and determination I hadn't realized I possessed. No longer was I Emily Harper, only a victim. There was still more fighting to be done. I was a fighter. After a hard day at the law firm, James stepped in with his tie unfastened. "Did you find anything of interest?" He nodded at the folder and asked. I rubbed my temples and let out a sigh, more than I wanted. I passed a paper across the table, an old bank statement from my mother's account, found during Rachel's research. Large withdrawals and transfers to my grandmother's name occurred decades ago, according to the pattern. Susan was also influenced, I whispered. When she was a little girl, her mother spent all of her money. Like clockwork, she's been there, done that with me. I needed time to comprehend this, so James remained silent, even though his eyes expanded. With my thoughts racing, I reclined. I had it in my head that Susan was the one orchestrating everything, and manipulating Olivia the whole time. But she's shackled by her own constraints, isn't she? My mind was flooded with the understanding that she was ensnared and was pulling me down with her. It was a hefty yet clarifying wave. I was ending a cycle of abuse that had persisted for generations. I wasn't only standing up for myself. That night, Liam called, his voice tentative but kind. The Wicker Park Cafe with the sticky tables and the neon signs buzzing in the window was where we met. More confessions were made over burgers and fries. Staring at his plate, he spoke to Emily, explaining that his mother had always taught him that families lived by taking what they needed without asking. Even before the anniversary celebration, I overheard her and Olivia discussing how they may borrow money from you. "I should have told you," he said, his remorse evident in his looking directly into my eyes. I made a mistake. Even as my jaw clenched, I still extended my hand to take his. "Liam, your arrival is imminent. That's what matters," he said, his lip curving slightly into a grin. "Sis, I've had enough of their regulations." His comments were like a salve smoothing over the rough spots in my heart. He wanted our family to be one that encouraged rather than discouraged. They weren't like Liam. The right choice, my choice, was his. A local nonprofit emailed me first thing the next morning. A campaign dubbed #BreakTheCycle was born out of my anonymously published story in the Chicago Tribune, which went viral. Someone contacted me via email and asked me to share my story of surviving financial abuse at a Grant Park community gathering. My heart was pounding, and I went across. "Am I give speeches?" Sarah Miller's letter raced across my thoughts despite the horrifying concept. "Your bravery rescued me," she had penned. "It would have been worthwhile if I could only aid one individual." There were hundreds of individuals there, including survivors, advocates, and family members, and the atmosphere was tremendous. "My name is Emily," I said, my voice trembling at first, but the warmth of the audience helped me steady myself as I went onto the platform. In my mind, being a family meant sacrificing everything no matter how much it hurt. However, I discovered that respect is the most important aspect of family. I stood up to financial abuse, not out of vengeance, but to break free. The thunderous ovation was like a bear embrace. People of all ages nodded, some of whom were visibly upset. No longer was I on my own. A lady then came up to me holding a notepad in her fists. Mrs. Miller's voice quivered as she introduced herself. "Thanks to your story, I was able to stop my cousin from spending all of my money. Emily, you have my eternal gratitude," as I sobbed onto her shoulder and embraced her fiercely. "Sarah, you're stronger than you realize," I said. It seemed like a turning point at that time under the Chicago heat. For others, my suffering had become a guiding light. We had some spaghetti and some fun when James and Liam came home for supper. With enthusiasm radiating from his eyes, Liam had recently secured a position with a tech company located in the Loop. "I'm staying in Chicago, sis," he replied, the glass raised in the air. "I need to be close to my real family," James said as he grabbed my hand under the table, his ring shining in the light. With a toast to new beginnings, we clinked glasses, the sound carrying the weight of a promise. That night, while I lay in bed, listening to the city buzz outside, Susan, Olivia, and Ethan were on my mind. Their homes, dignity, and careers had all been taken from them. Even though I wanted to comfort them, I knew deep down that this was their fault and not mine. Not only had I ended the cycle for myself, but for Sarah, Liam, and many others as well. Gone was the web of treachery, and in its stead was a tapestry spun with bravery, love, and the family I had chosen. Each of the lights below Chicago symbolized a narrative, a fight, and a possibility. Emily Harper wasn't the only person I was now. I was an inspiration, a trailblazer, and a strong lady. It was my intention to continue shining. Outside my apartment, the wind howled like a lion. Yet within, I felt a calm power. Even my own family had betrayed me. My mother, Susan, my sister, Olivia, and her husband, Ethan. Emily Harper had to walk through fire. They took $12,000, gave me a $20,000 loan in my name, and referred to it as family. I stood up to them, shattered their illusions, and am on my way again. As I sat at my computer, the gleam of James's engagement ring hung on my finger, and the sound of Liam's laughter resounded from a recent conversation. I came to the realization that my tale wasn't unique. For some, it served as a roadmap to recovering their lives. Everything I've learned is here, and you can use it no matter where you are. Establish limits even with loved ones. The way I used to think about love was that it meant giving in to every single request, whether it was to purchase an anniversary present for my parents, or to send money to Liam for college, or to cover Olivia's children's school fees. But I felt empty and depleted after hearing all those yeses. In the United States, we hold the freedom to defend our own property in the highest regard. I saw the truth when Olivia said, "You're selfish," because I wouldn't let her steal from me. Limits aren't selfish, they're survival. Think about if someone is showing you respect when they ask for your time, money, or energy. Make your disapproval known if the answer is no. Declining that additional loan or missing that guilt-inducing family gathering are little ways to practice this. Your value is unrelated to the amount of help you provide. Also pursue justice, not vengeance. The most difficult decision I've ever had to make was to sue my family. Your blood is in them. My heart shouted at me. I knew in my heart that giving in to their theft would bring my downfall. But my brain was telling me otherwise. Fortunately, the United States has resources such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that may assist those who have been victims of financial exploitation. It was not with the intention of punishing Olivia or Susan that I gathered proof, which included bank records, SMS, and emails. Preserving my future was the main concern. Do not remain silent if you are the victim of exploitation. Call a lawyer or a helpline, save all receipts, and screenshot all messages. Reclaiming your power is the true meaning of justice, not causing harm to other people. Be kind at first. Perhaps you should report a little illegal charge or confront a buddy who borrows from you without paying it back. With every stride, bravery grows. Additionally, the term family has to be rethought. Until I heard Olivia's demands, Susan's scolding, and Ethan's smirks, I assumed that family meant blood. However, I was not treated as a sister or daughter, but rather like an ATM. People who are truly family like James, who comforted me through all my tears, and Liam, who bravely faced the anger of our parents for speaking the truth, are a source of strength. We honor chosen families in the United States, which might include trusted friends, romantic partners, and communities. Evaluate the people in your life. Do they respect your space and celebrate your successes? In such case, locate your people, seek for a mentor, get in touch with a former acquaintance, or join a support group. Whoever stays in your life is more important than your biological family. Lastly, being courageous may motivate others. a campaign for survivors of financial abuse called #BreakTheCycle was started when my anonymous tale made it to the Chicago Tribune. One person's voice may have a domino effect, as Sarah Miller's letter that thanked me for providing her strength demonstrated. We Americans are great at lifting one another up via story sharing, whether it's online in community centers or over a cup of coffee. Share your triumphs with the world. It deserves a post, a discussion, and a piece of writing. Someone may find their lifeline in your honesty. Give it a go. Post a message celebrating a minor win, like declining a poisonous request. The number of people who nod in agreement will astound you. You can use these teachings as tools, not simply words. After many late hours and heated arguments in court, I finally mastered them, to be sure they are effective. I remained steadfast when Olivia begged me, via text last week, to dismiss the civil complaint against Susan. "No," I said, maintaining a steady hand. "This is my boundary." Since Liam relocated to Chicago, we have been having weekly meals and establishing a trusting family dynamic. Strangers' expressions brightened as they felt heard and understood. After I shared my tale in Grant Park, I grew stronger, more independent, and more me with every decision I took. The United States of America is a land where people can get back up after falling. Using these tools doesn't necessitate a high-status career or a lover who is a lawyer. Find a place to start. Refuse to provide money to that one relative who's continually asking. You should report any unauthorized activity on your account. Find individuals that appreciate you and surround yourself with them. Tell your tale regardless of how nervous you feel. You're paving the road for more than just yourself. You're saving lives. I am not the same Emily who sobbed in that hotel room, crushed and deceived, as I gaze at the lights of Chicago's cityscape, which pulsate like a heartbeat. I am the Emily who struggled, who gained wisdom, who blossomed. That individual can also be you. Begin by doing something. End the rut. Design your own life. Your strength and the world are both waiting for you.